Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien. Lead! And Livingston have the lead! Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
That's right, folks. The Great Escape is happening. The Great Escape is on after another win at the weekend. Hello, you're listening to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to West Lothian's finest football team, Livingston Football Club, and proudly sponsored by Sharna Apparel. My name's Euan, and today I'm joined by Angus. Angus, how you doing, mate?
Not bad, to be honest. Yeah, as you said, well, as you've alluded to, there is something for us to be cheery and I was going to say optimistic about, but I'm not going to go quite as far. But yeah, it makes a world of a difference, doesn't it? Whenever you're coming on to this, or you're going into a week after a positive thing to talk to, I've witnessed on the Saturday. So yeah, can't complain at the moment. What about yourself, man?
Yeah, just pleasantly surprised. I predicted a win last week. I thought it's quite a regular thing you see in football that a team that's backs against the wall, last hurrah type mentality, and I thought we were very comfortable in the game, and it just begs the question why we haven't seen more of that throughout the season, unfortunately. But yeah, at least it gives us a little bit of positivity going into our next game, which is kind of all you can really ask for at this stage of the season. But yeah, all good. You also made a little debut on open goal as well. How did you find it?
Aye, not bad. I feel like I was there to bring the mood down because everybody else is kind of having, all right, reasonable season. So they were talking about certain, positive things that they were going to be trying to do and stuff like that. Whereas, yeah, I was just sort of there being the
Mood hoover.
the depressed one. But, maybe if it was this week instead and we just came off a victory, there would be a slight bit more of positivity there. But I guess we'll see what happens in the next kind of couple of weeks.
Oh, as always, search for Talk Livi on your preferred podcast streaming site where you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can also catch up on all our episodes that we've done today as well.
We'll kick the episode off by discussing how the Lions staved off relegation for another week with a comfortable 2-0 victory over Ross County in West Lothian.
Paul Greig would make his debut in the dugout for our women's side, and the new gaffer would get off to a winning start with a 3-2 victory over St Johnstone. We'll discuss all the talking points from a thrilling encounter.
And finally, we look ahead to Livi's trip to Fir Park as they look to end the 22-year hoodoo and stave off relegation for another week against Motherwell. Livy were on the brink of relegation as Ross County made the trip to West Lothian. Goals from Bruce Anderson and a Sean Kelly penalty would stave off relegation for another week as the Lions secured a 2-0 victory at home. Euan, general thoughts on that result in isolation?
I thought it was a really good performance and the most comfortable we've looked all season. I chatted to Ross Moran, who does the County Corner podcast after the game, and he kind of said very similar. Thought we were very much deserving of the 3 points, and if I was a County fan, I'd actually be pretty pissed off at the level of performance from their team. And I'd said to you when we were doing the preview for it a couple of weeks ago that I almost thought it was a good thing that there was that 2-week break after their win against Rangers. Because it takes a little bit of that momentum away from them. If we were playing them straight off the back of that result, I feel like you might have got a slightly different performance from Ross County. Because I remember when we've gone on and beat Celtic, I think whenever we have beaten Celtic, it's just been before the international break, and then we've not followed it up afterwards. You kind of lose that little bit of momentum. So, yeah, I felt like Ross County were very, very flat, but I thought we came out and put in a really, really good performance overall. Thought had a little bit of everything about it. I thought we offered a decent threat at the top end of the park. I thought we played some decent football at times. Looked like there was a little bit of pressure off the players almost at times. And I thought we defended our box incredibly well. I can't really say that there was any poor performances in amongst the 11 plus substitutes who came onto the park. But we did get the lead early doors, which probably helps a little bit. Long ball forward from Stephen Kelly. I think it's the boy Leak who leaves a header sort of short, and Bruce Anderson's on hand, nips in behind, lobs the ball over Ross Laidlaw and puts us in front in the game. Obviously, Bruce had to start the game because of Tete Yengi being out through suspension, and I thought Bruce put in a pretty stellar performance on the whole. Thought he did put in a really good shift up top. But I thought we created the much better chances within the first half. Scott Pittman had a flick from a Dan Mackay cross, which has managed to be blocked. Josh Sims did have a chance where he got in behind, albeit Shamal George has made himself big and managed to get the block in. And then Dan Mackay also had an opportunity as well where Bruce Anderson's pulled the ball back, albeit he's not made a really good connection with the strike. Do also think we had a pretty strong penalty claim, which was down your end of the park. I don't know what you made of it in real time, but having seen a few replays of it, it definitely does look like Bruce is caught, and I'm very surprised the referee wasn't sent to the monitor to have another look at that, because for me there's clear contact, and I think it's a clear and obvious error, if I'm totally honest, given that there is clear contact on Bruce Anderson, and I feel we should have had the penalty.
And honestly, at real time, it did kind of look as if it was like a bit of a slip. But as you're saying,
to be fair, I thought that as well in real time, that Bruce had maybe just slipped.
Yeah, but as you're saying, like with the VAR does spot that there's contact instead. I guess like the next question is then, is there enough kind of contact to kind of be like a penalty? I've kind of like advocated this season for a penalty, like that not all contact is like a foul and stuff like that. Like, is there like an element of him? Is he like slipped there and like the contact's kind of like led to it? Is like kind of like afterwards or anything like that? I don't know if that's maybe like the viewpoint of like the officials and stuff like that. But luckily, Euan, we didn't have to need it in the end, did we?
Yeah, exactly. And we did get a penalty eventually at the start of the second half, and Sean Kelly with duly dispatch of it. It was a handball by Effety after Dan Mackay flicked the ball. Again, I think it's with a handball rule the way it is, it's a stick-on penalty for me, albeit I think the Ross County bench were having a bit of debate with the officials from the throw-in that led to it. I think they were trying to claim, we're trying to claim it was a foul throw with Nottingham's foot being on the park. They might have had a case there. I've not actually seen enough of the replay, albeit that's down my end of the park, but that's instantly what we were looking at.
I don't even need to see a replay. Both of his feet were over the white line.
But I actually think the white line's a bit thicker at that bit of the pitch. So actually, I think he was still...
Like, his feet were closer to the 18-yard box.
No, as I say, the touchline, that half of the pitch, obviously I sit there, Angus, it's a lot thicker. Down that side.
Like an interesting point, though, is like we talk about VAR and stuff like that, like and like what they check. Like, do you think they just don't think to check something like that? Like, imagine you got a penalty and they like did like cut it back for like a full throw. That would be you'd be so raging, wouldn't you?
I suppose it's not the most obvious thing to look for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait, you're obviously looking for a foul or you're looking for an offside. These are the obvious things that you look for in those circumstances. But yeah, I do think we got slightly lucky with that, albeit I think the handball is a clear handball and it is a penalty, and Sean Kelly's duly dispatched of it. And as I say, I thought we were. I know Ross County had a bit more of the ball second half, but I thought we always looked really comfortable in the game. I thought we had another couple of decent opportunities where we worked the ball really well into good areas. Stephen Kelly put one across the face of goal that Bruce almost gets on to at the back post. Probably say the only right clear-cut opportunity County have is the header from Eamon Brophy, which Shamal George saves, and then Dan Mackay subsequently clears off the line as well. Brophy had one which Shamal's tipped wide on the angle later on in the game. But as I say, I thought we were really comfortable for large spells of the game, and need to give a lot of credit to the back four. The previous week or previous game where we've been on this podcast against Hearts, we were incredibly critical of the back four. However, I think, and there was obviously a little bit of tweaking needing made when Iobelai came off as well, but I thought Devlin had a very good performance. Nottingham was solid. Sean Kelly was solid. Sangari, when he came on, was solid. So you need to give them a little bit of credit where it's due in that performance. I thought Jamie Brandon again in the middle of the park was excellent. I thought Pittman was fantastic. I thought Holt was fantastic as well during the game. And I thought, as I say, I mentioned Bruce earlier on, I thought he put in a fantastic performance as well. And just the icing on the cake was to see the young lad Tommy Sharp come off the bench and make his full debut for the football club. That's a second player this season. He follows Caelan Ledingham at the start of the campaign, who's come on to make his debut from the fairly recently reformed youth setup. So that was obviously a little plus point as well at the end of the game. But it's just good to see a decent performance, a little bit of character being shown by the players. But the pessimist in me just kind of sits and goes, where's that been for large parts of the season? Because there's a team clearly capable in amongst that group of players.
Yeah, to bring down a positive thing to being a bit dour, it's just incredibly frustrating that this is a performance that's basically come off the back of us being forced to play certain kind of players. I think we've always been massive advocates of Bruce Anderson, not only for the fact that we're more likely to score with him on the park, but in terms of his all-round kind of play. And I think that you kind of see that there as well, that, the passes and all of that he kind of plays in that kind of final third. There's one that comes into him, the ball's fired into his feet, and on the swivel he just plays out wide right to Dan Mackay and stuff like that. And I understand the benefits of having a bigger striker up front and stuff like that, but in all honesty, there's not a striker at the club over the 3 years that Anderson's been at that's better than them. In all honesty, the fact that we've absolutely squandered his abilities in that over these last 2 seasons is absolutely ridiculous. And I think that Saturday showed what happens when you get Bruce into the team, get Brucey into the team, as he was so commonly said in interviews, and get kind of ball playing players around him as well. It's no shock that you had Bruce Anderson there, Dan Mackay, Stephen Kelly, and Pittman as the front four, and the fact that we were having to actually play a little bit more football and how much more comfortable we looked and how much better we looked. That's just an incredibly frustrating aspect of it. And I think that does, as you're kind of saying about the back line, that does take a bit of the pressure off of them as well. If the ball's being kept up at their end for a sustained amount of time, the back four aren't constantly having to think about what they're doing and constantly be aware and expect the ball coming right back onto them. So in that regard as well, it just breeds a whole bit more confidence for the team. The goal comes from chasing an absolute lost cause. How many times has that kind of happened with Bruce Anderson in the last kind of couple of years? I remember the one against Dundee United last season as well. Having these kind of players who are not going to give the opposition backline a minute's peace and stuff like that is tremendous. And that echoed through the team going into the man of the match performance for Jamie Brandon as well, who's absolutely ridiculous in the middle of the park with how calm and composed he is in the ball, and how much he gets stuck in and everything like that as well. But yeah, just you watch that performance and it's the fans what would have happened this season if we'd played our best players, our best kind of ball players this entire time? We'd definitely be a lot closer than we are right now, I think, which is just the kind of it's hindsight's a great thing and stuff, but I think that everybody could have called that, especially that first half of the season, Curtis Guthrie's not the answer. Newbley wasn't offering much. Why are we persisting with that when we've got a guy who's, our top goal scorer this season's had to be on the bench for the most part? I think it was his first start since March or something, or February or March, something like that. And it's a wild one. it's kind of became public that he's definitely going to be leaving and stuff like that as well. Bruce Anderson, that is, and he's somebody who'll go with the best wishes, because I think Saturday showed that every time he came on for Livingston, he was always somebody who gave his all.
Bruce's first season at the club was his most prolific season. Was it 13 goals he got? And that's taken into consideration. He missed the last couple of months of the season. I think he would have probably managed to grab another 2 or 3 goals on top of that had he not suffered that injury. He played with two out and out wide players, and be it a combination of Bailey, Newbley, Forrest, either side of him. And if he gets that sort of service, those type of players in and around him, he's going to get chances. Now, Bruce, he's the most cut and dry goal scorer that we've had, I would say, since Ryan Hardy. Ryan Hardy was the last striker we had that I would say is a goal scorer. He has a nose for goal. He gets into the right
In the
areas.
box.
Exactly. And Bruce is that type of striker. Now, I get it, at Livingston, you can't just be a goal hanger. You can't just be a goal poacher. There needs to be more to your all-round game. And I was talking about this before the game to guys in the stadium bar, and I feel like that injury Bruce had at the tail end of his first season almost set him back a little bit. I thought his all-round game had really started to develop at that point in terms of playing as a lone striker, and then that injury, because he missed a lot of pre-season, missed the start of the following season as a result, and I felt his game kind of went a little bit backwards, and that's where you really started to see Bruce coming in and out the side a lot more for me, and the manager maybe not trusting Bruce to do a certain type of job within the team. Now, is there a case you've talked about, if that's maybe not Bruce's strong point of his game, is there a case that you maybe tweak your team to get the best out of Bruce? You put somebody up alongside him. For example, could you have tried him and Teti Yengi up together at some points this season? Because you've got Teti's physical presence, and then you've got Bruce who can work off him. There's other ways that you could try and get the best and try and get these players into the team. And it's no surprise, Bruce is still our top goal scorer this season with 9 goals. And a team that's created very, very little for him over the course of the season. And also, as you mentioned, it's his first start since the kind of tail end of February, start of March. So Bruce hasn't been a regular feature within that starting 11 as well over the course of the campaign. So it begs the question, if he had been in and about the team, and he had been in a team that was creating opportunities, how many goals he would have got. I have no doubts that another team within the Scottish Premiership will be sniffing in and about Bruce. I know he's been linked with Kilmarnock, had been mentioned, St Mirren had been mentioned, Dundee had been mentioned. So it doesn't surprise me if he ends up at one of these clubs. And I feel like Bruce is the type of player that needs to feel wanted. And I think in the last couple of seasons at Livingston, I don't think he's felt wanted. Whilst every fan loves a goal scorer. And that's what Bruce is. Bruce will score goals in a team that creates opportunities for him. And his goal at the weekend just comes, as you say, from chasing a lost cause. But there was a couple of wee snippets where he gets into areas to score goals. Like that one in the second half where Stephen Kelly drags it across. He's in and about the 6-yard box, nearly on the end of something. And yeah, as you say, Livingston fans will wish Bruce the best when he leaves the football club, because I do think he puts in a power of work when he is on the park. And I do feel he's probably a player we've not utilised as well as we could have in his 3 years at the club. But let's try and end it on a positive instead of us going absolutely to town. We have managed to secure a victory. We have managed to stave off relegation. We've also closed the gap to 9 points. As I say, Angus, it's on, isn't it? The Great Escape, the greatest of great escapes, it's on, isn't it? Come on, you believe. You must believe.
I would maybe start to be a bit delusional if it wasn't for the next game that we've got. That place is
A graveyard of Livingston
something.
teams.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that the place we're going to next, we concede on average 2.5 goals. So yeah, if we win that, then I'll be are the plates moving together? Is everything coming into place? Is the planets aligning? But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll have to see for another week. But yeah, we're accustomed ourselves to the fact of kind of relegation and stuff like that. So to kind of have staved it off again for a little while is yeah, it's kind of pleasant. The performance is probably more so. We're not going to be stupid here and act as if it's going to be revolutionary.
I
Um,
believe. I believe. I think we're doing it, mate. I believe.
Well, there we go. You heard it first. I'm looking forward to seeing these predictions every week from you.
But obviously, a much better way to finish your Saturday is with 3 points. Here's hoping we can take a little bit of momentum into the game at Fir Park and end a little bit of a hoodoo at that place as well. We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livy listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivy at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livy.
Paul Greig was appointed as the new head coach of our women's side, and he would get off to a winning start with a 3-2 victory over St Johnstone in West Lothian. Certainly a great start to his tenure, and even better to come from 2-0 down in the game. First thoughts, Angus. We obviously kind of had an idea that this appointment was getting made, and whilst we were recording, I think it was the appointment was made official later on that day when we last recorded the podcast. But Paul Greig, someone who's familiar at the club. He was involved in the youth setup for a short spell fairly recently. He's been involved in the women's game for a while, and also his now wife, Nick Greig now, was obviously involved with the team last year as well. So pretty sensible appointment.
Yeah, sure. That's it, like, you know a whole lot more than me. But yeah, again, somebody who's came in with like a decent enough background and stuff like that. I believe that there's work done with kind of like national teams, I think like Hibs and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's a kind of positive sign to have somebody with a catalogue behind them and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting to see how things kind of progress on from there. Good start getting a win on a couple of weeks ago. Now the game actually recording on the Wednesday where they're going to be playing Glasgow Women. So I think that there's maybe going to be a bit of an itching to have kind of got back out there. One game and then you're off for a week but at least the midweek kind of clash gives you a bit more time to get back in. But yeah, like to go on to talk about the game against St Johnstone, you kind of mentioned a great start there. It wasn't a great start in the match, in all honesty.
Yeah.
We seemed to be shaking off a couple of the cobwebs and stuff like that. I'm not sure what quite happened, but for the first 20 minutes or so, we were really flat, in all honesty. St Johnstone, to be fair to them, were on it. They were causing a lot of problems last year. Ellie May Cowie, who was a player of the month for March, it would have been, I believe, was really causing us a whole lot of trouble. Balls over the top from her to her. She was getting in behind, and I think she manages to score the first one. She gets in behind and she rounds Molly Reeve and is able to fire in. I think the second goal as well, she does really well to cut it back to the other St Johnstone player whose name I'm forgetting just now. And she makes it, I think it was Steffi Simpson, I believe it was, makes it 2-0. And in all honesty, when they went 2-0 up and, the nature of our performance, I think we were kind of expecting the worst. We were expecting St Johnstone, if they had chosen to, they probably could have gone on to score 3 or 4 more. But it did seem as if they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit more. I don't know if they started to think that they were taking liberties, especially, on the left-hand side, their fullback wasn't tracking Sharon Hughes-Lee, which would come back to haunt them massively in the game. We do get to break down our right-hand side with Sharon cutting the ball back, and Lauren Evans was there to tap in to give you a lifeline kind of instantly from that kind of 2-0 deficit. then again, something quite similar. There's an abundance of space down our right hand side, and Sharon fires a great shot into the bottom left corner. Really, really good composed finish from her. And suddenly you're going into half time 2 each when you were looking at it and saying that we were on the end to hiding for a bit. So I think that the message probably would have been that, at half time that, they can't start like that again because it was really, really poor. But yeah, fair play for getting themselves back into it, and deservedly so. And I think that knocked the stuffing out of St Johnstone a little bit. I think that they were, kind of cruising, and then they would have like instantly been pegged back in that kind of way when, in all honesty, they had been the better team. But regarding like the second half, I think that if there was going to be a team who was going to win it, it was us. I think it was like an even game, but like St Johnstone weren't necessarily creating a whole host of chances and stuff like that. It was more so us. I think we ended up getting a penalty, which is, I'm trying to think of when the last time we got a penalty was, which is quite a strange one. Lauren Evans got filled in the box, and it was Ashley Elizabeth who stepped up, and unfortunately the goalkeeper's made a good cracking save to save that, and then saves the follow up as well. I think there was like another one from close range that the keeper made an astonishing save, and I think you were just kind of looking at it as, we weren't maybe going to be able to capitalise on our pressure, but we got a very strange breakthrough. We had a corner kick, Ashley Elizabeth, and from the angle that she was taking it, it's hard to believe that this corner kicks went into the back of the net. I'm not entirely sure what's kind of ensued there for that to end up in, but it appears to have gone straight in from the corner kick, and we've ended up 3-2 up. And then from there, it's all just about seeing the game out, which we did very resolutely. The back line, kept strong and stuff like that. There wasn't any spaces in behind. Molly Reeve, coming and saving anything that had to be done. So yeah, in the end, it was pleasing. Poor start, but I think a lot of character and great kind of response from the team.
Yeah, as you say, a really good response, having started the game so poorly, and to peg St Johnstone back so quickly prior to half time, I think shows, as I say, a good bit of character from the girls. Just a couple of points to make. Obviously, it's a fantastic way for Paul Greig to get his tenure up and running at the football club, but someone who's in a very good, rich vein of form just now is Ashley Elizabeth. She's back on the goal trail after maybe a little bit of a dry spell earlier in the season where she was in and out the side a lot more, but she's been consistently playing in recent weeks, and that's adding to goals at the other end of the park, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you could probably put Ash into the category as being like a bit of a confidence player, in all honesty, and maybe under like the last kind of like couple of months or that it's not fully been there, as you say, kind of like being in and out of the team and stuff like that. Whereas, this kind of extended run, obviously it's been under like kind of like 3 different coaches, but she's been in the starting 11 and she's taking the chances, and that's all you can really ask, to be honest. We all know that Ash is, an incredible goal scorer, top goal scorer at the club with 53 goals, I think it is now, if it's including that one from Sunday. And yeah, if you give her good service and stuff like that, she can be a valuable asset for the team. That goal on St Johnstone's maybe the most unorthodox one that she's scored so far. But yeah, she's been cracking in the last kind of couple of weeks, and it's a very valuable asset to have at the team when she's in great form, which she's definitely in right now as well. I think somebody else who's maybe helped a bit has been Lauren Evans, who I think at the start of the season we're talking about, if you can get into the team, get fit and stuff like that, can be a massive kind of boost. And I think you're now starting to kind of see that. I think she's got a good couple of goals in the last couple of games as well. I mean, somebody who maybe does slightly different things to a lot of the striking options we have. Is she's somebody who can hold the ball up, she can bring other players in the team. I think she's got incredible kind of game intelligence and stuff like that to bring in players. So it's good that you're kind of coming to the tail end of this season, and you've got if we're going back to that 3-5-2, I think we've struggled to kind of land on a front two for most of this season, but that seems to be a pair that is working well so far. Decent experience in there, decent ability, and the goals are coming with it as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the girls have a game against Glasgow Women. We'll obviously come on to review the game in our next podcast, and obviously don't want to probably go into too much detail because it depends when we manage to get this one out. But they've got a set of fixtures between now and the end of the season where there's good opportunity for points. Obviously, that home game with Glasgow Women, I think it's Gartcairn and Stirling Uni away, who are, I think Gartcairn will probably see themselves safe now, but both Glasgow women still and Uni still have a lot to play for in terms of trying to get some safety and stay in the division, and then end the season with a game against Queen's Park, who have already wrapped up the league. So there's a decent opportunity for points there, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. I think that the playoffs are probably out of the realm of possibility. To be fair, to claw back 6 points is maybe a bit of a tough task. To be fair, but I think looking to solidify third place is an incredible achievement. In all honesty, like you look at the teams who are maybe a bit more settled and a bit more prominent in these divisions and stuff like that. I think that we've really taken this season into our stride, and albeit with improvements that can still be made and consistencies that can still be sharpened up, I think it's a good marker that we've kind of set this season.
Yeah, absolutely. For a newly promoted side to finish third, it's, I would say, a pretty successful campaign, and for large portions of that, we're in touch, certainly with second spot, and we're competing for that promotion race, but unfortunately just maybe ran out of a little bit of steam after that winter break, and a little bad patch of forms, maybe seen them kind of fall adrift there. But I think it would still be a very, very successful season to finish third, and as I say, a good set of fixtures to try and wrap up third spot as well. So it'd be good to see as many folk getting down to the games as possible, and giving the girls your support.
The Lions make the trip to Motherwell looking to end a 22-year hoodoo, as well as stave off relegation for yet another week. Euan, can we perform a miracle in of all places, Motherwell, where we've struggled so much since coming back up?
It would almost be fitting for this place to be where we get relegated, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because I was actually just having a think before coming on to record and try to go back from when we got promoted and what results we've got at Fir Park. And there was the first game back there where we drew one each. Keegan Jacobs scored that spectacular free kick. And then we drew early doors in the COVID season there, two each. Dykes and Forrest scored the goals in that draw. I think that's our only 2 points at Fir Park in our 6 years back in the top flight, which is astonishing. And
it's got to
it's,
be the place where we've done the worst at, right?
oh,
That or Newcastle.
well, Tynecastle we've picked up. I think we've picked up at least 3 points. So if any, and even the performances at Tynecastle typically are pretty, have actually
Decent.
been okay
Uh,
since promotion. And I think we've also probably played Hearts in less games since being back in the top flight, because they obviously had a season in the Championship and amongst that as well. So yeah, Motherwell's just been a graveyard for our teams over the last 6 years, and going back even further in time, back to 2002. October 2002 was the last time we won there, 5-1 in our season where we played in Europe. So yeah, it's not been a good hunting ground, and it's been even worse for the fact that we've very rarely produced a decent performance there. I've lost count of the amount of times where we've had an absolute disastrous 45 minutes there.
yeah.
Again, going back to that first season, I remember us being 3-0 down twice in the one season there. There was the 3-0 last season, which kind of was at the start of this really poor run that we found ourselves on for the last 18 months. And then earlier this season as well, a terrible start to the game. We're 3-1 down at half time. And it's not a place I would fancy us to go and pick up a result, but what you're just hoping for is that the players have got a little bit of confidence. I feel Motherwell are probably safe from being dragged into the playoffs. I think it's going to take a big swing for them to get dragged into that between now and the end of the season with 4 games left to play. So I feel they'll probably see themselves just about safe, albeit this not mathematically. So they do still have something to play for between now and the end of the season. But as I say, it would almost be a fitting way for us to go down the permutations. I believe we would need to lose, and Ross County would need to pick up at least a point at home to Hibs, which would secure relegation and our fate going towards the Championship next year. But again, I think the team's going to pretty much pick itself next week in terms of our side of things, with the number of injuries that we've got, albeit Tete Yenge should be back available. Does he come straight back into the side off the back of Bruce's performance against Ross County? Or do you try and accommodate both those players into the same side? It's maybe something to think about. But kind of looking at our opponents a little bit more, Motherwell's home form hasn't been great this season. And again, that's a cheap shot coming from ourselves. But they've only won the 4 games, drawn 6, lost 7 at home this season, albeit a very interesting stat with Motherwell, as they've fallen behind 25 times this season in games. But I've gained 19 points from losing positions. Now, the team closest to them is Kilmarnock on 12. They've managed to pick up 3 wins and 10 draws from losing positions. So I know Davy Martindale likes to talk about how the first goal is always really important in games in the Scottish Premiership, but Motherwell kind of debunk that myth a little bit in terms of the amount of results they've managed to claw back from losing positions. Certainly 2 players that you need to be wary of. Theo Bair, who put us to the sword earlier in the season in that game at Fir Park, grabbing a couple of goals. He's had a pretty remarkable second half of the campaign, 13 goals. He's also chipped in with 4 assists as well. The other player I need to be pretty wary of is a player I really, really like, is Blair Spittle. He's chipped in with 7 goals, 9 assists. Really, really cultured right foot, good delivery. Motherwell obviously have a lot of physicality as well, so that's something you need to be very wary of, is Blair Spittle's delivery. I think he'll be a really good signing for Hearts. He's signed a pre-contract to go there. But yeah, in terms of looking at how Motherwell's set up, they've typically been setting up a 3-4-3 or a kind of variation of that in terms of how they get bodies in and around Theo Bair. Lennon Miller's been one of the Young Player of the Year candidates, I believe, in the PFA Awards, and I think he'll go on to have a very good career. Obviously, watching him quite closely, given the connection with Lee Miller, an ex-Livingston player as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to... The games with Motherwell typically tend to be a little bit of a battle, but in the couple of games that I've seen Motherwell this season, most recently, the game on Sky, I think Motherwell probably don't get as much credit. I think they do try and play a little bit more under Stuart Kettlewell. I kind of noticed that at the tail end of last season as well, where they came to our place and we drew 1 each with them. I do think they try and get the ball down a little bit more. So they're moving away from that model they had almost under Graham Alexander, which was kind of shell it, get the ball forward, play very physical. I do think they do try and play a little bit more. So I think it's going to be a very tough game because, as I say, Motherwell do still, albeit I think they will be safe, but they're not mathematically, so they do have something to play for going into this game.
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, and I've just got terrible images of us going like 3-0 down in about 20 minutes. Like it's happened in a couple of the recent occasions against Motherwell. But it's going to be an interesting one. If we take that performance from Saturday into the game, then there's no reason as to why we can't give a good account of ourselves. Can't sit off them. I mean, like that last game that you're talking about at Sky, it was on Sky there. I think the first half performance was really, really good, but then we just sort of kind of like faded from that in the second half and stopped doing the kind of right things. So it's important that we have a fluent, consistent performance throughout the whole game. Whether or not that happens, we'll have to see. But yeah, it's down to the players now, isn't it?
Pretty much so. The only thing in terms of availability of players, Obalai came off at the weekend there. That would, looking at the personnel that's available, I'm going to assume that certain players aren't going to be available. That would probably look at your back 4 being Sean Kelly moving in one to centre half and Sangari going in at left back would probably be the most likely situation that would develop from that. Is there any other things you would maybe like to see in terms of personnel wise?
I guess you could maybe incorporate Yengi onto the left-hand side and drop Pittman back into there and put Brandon back into fullback. Maybe that would maybe work, and you could have, I guess, Nottingham into the centre of defence. But it'll be interesting to see that kind of regard. To see what he does with Tete Yengi being back. It would be incredibly harsh to kind of throw Bruce back onto the bench after that, but I don't think I would be surprised at the same time as well. But yeah, I think that we've tried something with what we've been trying against Motherwell the last times. A couple of times it's not gone right, so maybe we do need to take more of what we did against Ross County there. With, I think something that Davey always talks about is, defending set piece, defending defending and attacking both boxes and stuff like that. So like the height thing's definitely going to come into factor with, some of Motherwell's players like Sophia Bear and stuff like that. Well, Davey looked to combat that with, his own selection. I wouldn't be surprised. So in all honesty, that could lead to both Sangare and Yenge starting to kind of give you that extra height if you're going to be forced to play, like Brandon Holt, Pittman, Stephen Kelly, or Bruce or something like that. But you just need to have something that gives us a bit of optimism, even if things don't go well in that an effort that's maybe not been there the entire season.
Yeah, another option I just kind of thought of there is Stephen Kelly last season played a lot off the left-hand side in games. Is it an option to put him there, put Bruce in the hole in behind Yenge, or Yenge in behind Bruce Anderson as another kind of option you could do in terms of trying to incorporate both of them into the side. But the simple fact is we need to win the game, isn't it? If you are looking to keep your hopes alive as long as possible in this division, we need to go there with the approach of trying to win the game of football. And for me, that needs to try and incorporate getting your biggest goal threats all on the park, and he might need to tweak something like that in order to accommodate the two players. And I do think Yenge will come back into the side, given Motherwell do play with a back three. It's a pretty physical back three as well that they have. So it wouldn't surprise me if Yenge comes back in just to almost keep them occupied. But I feel it's a good opportunity to get Bruce in with Yenge and get him working off of him, because that's what Bruce does. He sniffs opportunities out as a goal scorer, and as I say, we're going to need our biggest goal threats on the park because we need to go and win the game. But let's go prediction then, Angus. I'm guessing yours is going to be horrific.
I'm going to have to be honest. I'm going to have to go 2-1 Motherwell.
Well, will I be insane?
Yes.
2-1 Livingston. The dream is being kept alive for another week. But watch Ross County go and win and basically all but mathematically be secure because of goal difference. But screw it. I'm going for the hoodoo to end. It has to end at some point, surely. And let's be honest.
On top of this.
Let's be honest, right? If any team's going to do it, it's going to be this one, because it would just be the biggest shock if this team went to Motherwell and won. So, yeah, I'm going for a victory, but let's try and get as many fans along as possible to Motherwell. Back the team as much as you can. As I say, it could be our last hope of prolonging our stay in the Premiership, so I'm sure the team would really appreciate your support going to Fir Park. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. We really appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback as always. You can leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so simply search for Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there, and any shares and likes are always appreciated. All our episodes are available on all the usual podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in as well. And let's hope that this is the start of the great escape, the greatest of great escapes, and we get another great week following the Lothians' finest football team.
This is the place from which Livingston, oh Livingston, the Armenville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the